drops an atomic bomb.
Hello everyone, welcome back to 1951. We are continuing on with our overview series of sort of the game itself. So we'll kind of go into an overview of the factions now. So for our first video on factions, we're going to start with the United States. So basically at the beginning of the game, obviously the United States, from the backstory, the United States is pretty much the cause of this Third World War, because they were losing in Korea, they decided to use atomic weapons against the Manchurian-Korean border, and which again has escalated with the Russians joining the war. So kind of like basically like every Axis and Allies, or from what I've seen of the global war games, pretty much most of America's military power is at home. They are not that present abroad. They have two groups here in Germany, which are right here. Whoops, let me back that up. They have two groups in Germany here. You have this group that's stationed in Berlin. And then you have this group, which is stationed in southern Germany. Throughout the game, if you need if you need markers for stuff, for armies stuff, historical board gaming where we got all of them. There are also some specialty ones considering the special units that we have in the game, such as airborne forces and marine forces, stuff like that. So, like I said, you have you have most of the United States forces there at home. You have some in Europe. You have the U.S. Sixth Fleet in the Mediterranean right here. A small U.S. task force sailing through the Mediterranean as the war erupts. And then basically you have a majority of the U.S. naval power over here in the Pacific. Basically, mainly around Japan, Hawaii, and the western United States, as well as a token little force right there off of Guam, and then obviously the American base on Okinawa is occupied as well. So like I said, especially like here, you can see that we are using a 4th Marine Division to represent that this American unit is a Marine. Kind of near the end of the game, I'll go over sort of the different kind of pieces and stuff that that you can use for the United States. Stuff that you might want to buy. Some of these pieces are optional if you don't want them. But mainly you can use most of your regular sort of Axis and Allies pieces or global war pieces if you got them. But so kind of continuing on the overview here. So this is the rest of the American forces that are trapped in South Korea. And you have the American fleet around Japan, and Japan itself having sort of a token defense force there. Okinawa is sitting, with a small defense force as well. And so that's kind of so it's pretty much an overview of the United States in total as far as their positioning on the board. Oh, and then I also forgot they also have, 3 units here in Austria. And Austria is an interesting territory in this game because in the beginning of the game, Austria, kind of just like with East Germany, there are American and Russian units there. So they are forced to fight on turn 1, kind of to act as sort of like the buffer that they would have been in actuality. So now we'll kind of come down here and we'll take a look at the U.S. pieces as a whole that you can use. Obviously, the United States has the standard, infantry, mechanized infantry, and artillery from Axis and Allies. For self-propelled artillery guns, for the United States, self-propelled artillery is a unit you can buy right off the bat. That's represented by the M7 Priest. For regular tanks, we have, you can use the Axis and Allies Sherman tank, or you can use again, like I said, all these pieces come from historical board gaming. So you can use also their Pershing tank pieces to represent standard American armor. HBG came out with this one not too long ago, the M48 Patton, which is which we are classifying as a heavy tank for this game. And heavy tanks, I'll get into it when we do technologies, but heavy tank is a technology that you can unlock. The anti-aircraft gun is the same from Axis and Allies. From the second edition Global 40 games. Naval units, I mean, the submarine, the destroyer, the cruiser, and the battleship are all the same. But then we upgraded the aircraft carriers. So the main U.S. aircraft carriers are the Essex class carriers and the Midway carriers, and the Midway class carriers. And then the transport's the same from Axis and Allies. These two aircraft carriers with the angled decks. So there's the Essex angled deck and the Midway class angled deck. These represent a special technology that the U.S. will unlock. And again, I'll go into that more when I do technologies. But the United States has a national technology that they can unlock, which is we call advanced aircraft carriers. And so these two pieces represent those advanced aircraft carriers. Air Force, we initially were playing with just the P-38s. You can still do that. We just decided to go with P-51 Mustangs just for the fun of it. Jet fighters are a unit that you can buy right off the bat in the game. It's not a technology like in Global 40 now because jets are becoming a thing. So we got the F-86 Sabre jets. The tactical bomber is the same. When we first started out, we were still using the B-17 pieces, but then but through historical board gaming, we upgraded to the B-29s. We even had questions from some people about the B-36, since the 29s and the 36s were operating at the same time. But when we were kind of considering, when we were building the game, we didn't really think of the B-36, so we just stuck with the 29. For someone who wants to, kind of buy pieces for the game, I mean, if they want to, you can either do the 29 or the 36. They just act as your average strategic bomber. Then moving on, I mean, you got the B-52. The B-52 is another national tech that the United States can research for themselves, and the technology is the B-52. I'll go more into detail about the B-52 when I do the technologies video, or the updated technologies video then. And then you have your C-46 air transport. Those will allow, the air transports allow you to transport 2 units, whether that be 2 infantry, an infantry artillery, or an infantry anti-aircraft gun. Or you can use it or you can use them for airborne assaults, where you can take 2 airborne units or 2 airborne infantry and drop them. They have a range of 6 spaces. Well, I mean, technically a range of 3 out, 3 back kind of thing. So a little different from Axis and Allies, where I think Axis and Allies was like a straight. Axis and Allies I think was also just 3 spaces, but we gave the air transport a movement of 6, so 3 out, 3 back, that kind of thing. And then, like I said, so airborne and Marines are a special unit you can buy. So, for the United States, we bought the U.S. airborne markers and the U.S. Marine Corps markers. For all the other factions, pretty much, it's either, a blue Marine ship or this gray airborne ship. For NATO, we also we bought some British airborne markers, since Britain is a part of NATO. So, we have, from historical board gaming, they sell British airborne markers. So, where is it? So, over here at England, over here on this army board, for England, you have the first NATO air, the first airborne division, stuff like that. So those are those markers to denote units in the game. So, I mean, overall, I mean, that's basically the United States. They, they already kind of start off on a war economy. There is no, like, before war economy, then after war economy, or after war's declared economy. The United States just has starts out with one single economy. The United States starts with 58 IPC right off the bat. But obviously, I mean, they pretty much are going to, pretty quickly, they most playtests show that usually they get overrun in Europe and over in South Korea. Yeah, in South Korea, usually in the first turn. Sometimes if the communists get lucky, they even are able to get Japan in the first turn. So the United States' IPC quickly falls, usually falls pretty quick between turn 1 and turn 2. So, yeah, that's sort of an overview of the United States at this point, or at least an overview of the United States at the beginning of the game. Like I said, most of their military is at home. They do have units abroad in Europe and Asia, but like I said, still a good chunk of it is still, basically around the continental United States. So yeah, that is basically a look into the United States for this turn. We'll be back another time, and we'll go over. We'll probably just go over all the allies first. So we'll go over NATO next, and we'll kind of go from there. So until the NATO video, guys, take care and have a good one.